Okay.
All right, welcome everyone to our City Council meeting for Monday, January 25th. If we could have a roll call, please, ma'am.
Harry Meyer,
Here.
Melissa Green,
Here.
Bill Ott,
Here.
Autumn Slane,
Here.
Terry McClung,
I'm here.
Laura Jo Smoley.
Yes.
All right, put stand and pledge allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, if I could get a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved. Second.
Any corrections or additions? All right, hearing none, all those in favor of the agenda as submitted signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Get a motion to approve the minutes.
I would make a motion to approve the minutes of January 11th, 2020,
I'll second that.
or 2021, I'm sorry.
I'll second that.
All right, we've got a motion to approve the minutes for January 11th, 2021. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. We do have a State of the City address on there, and I guess that's one item that I'm going to have to defer. We've been a little busy this last couple of weeks, and I haven't been able to get that, so I'm going to hopefully get this and present it to the council and the city at our next meeting in February. In the meantime, for all the residents out there who are interested in possibly applying for the Planning Commission, we have a vacant seat on the Planning Commission. So if you're interested, please come up or give us a call or email, and we'll get an application in. In your packet, and with us, is Rick Bright, Finance Director for the CAPC, has a fourth quarter financial report from the CAPC. So that's for y'all's review and information on there. Also on the Hospital Commission, we've got a vacancy there, and in your packet, April Griffith is a nominee that I'm submitting to the council to look at and bring to the table for our next meeting for approval. So if you have any questions, just give her a call. She is the librarian here at our local library. So,
Oh, wonderful.
we can see about that in there. Also, in the Parks Commission, you have and this is something we've been looking forward to for a long time, you have the third and fourth quarter written reports in there, along with the 2021 budget for your review. They've finally gotten able to get all their bookkeeping together and put this in for us. Also, for anybody who is interested, we actually have 2 vacancies coming up in the Parks Commission. So anybody in the city limits of Eureka who's interested in applying, please give us a call. This is a very important commission and a lot of activity going on in Eureka Springs.
Who's leaving us?
Beg pardon?
Which commissions are leaving us?
Who's leaving?
Yeah, who's leaving?
Sam Dudley
Oh.
is leaving, and I can't remember who the other
Christian?
person was.
Yes.
Okay. All right, thank you.
And in the cemetery, we have the fourth quarter 2020 written reports, too, for the financials. So, and at this time, we'll come up with public comments. If there's any citizen who wishes to speak.
I'm Rick Bright. I reside at 14 Engle Street here in Eureka Springs. I'm in Ward 2. First of all, I would like to say that I do not have any issue with the outcome of the votes taken at the last City Council meeting, January 11th, 2021, appointing commissioners to the CAPC Commission. However, as a citizen business owner and an employee of the CAPC Commission, I do take issue to the manner of which the votes were taken. The commissioners were told that they could not vote for themselves. Each elected city alderman that represents the citizens of Eureka Springs own their vote and are a voice for those who elected them. Nobody has the authority to tell a commissioner they cannot cast a vote for themselves or otherwise. Even if a commissioner would have a personal conflict with something being voted on, they can still cast a vote. They cannot be forced to abstain from the vote. It is the elected official's choice to weigh the possibility of consequences, lawsuits, or such they should vote on a subject. I would suggest that the vote of the CAPC representatives from the City Council be retaken in a legal manner, allowing the commissioners to vote as they deem necessary to properly serve their constituents. Thank you for your consideration to this matter, and thank you for your service to this community.
Do we have any other comments from anybody? All right, if not hearing anything, the public comments will be closed. Under new business, we have an application for rezoning 38 Prospect from R1 Victorian Residential to C3 Quiet Commercial. This is McKinney making the application. This has gone through the Planning Commission, and the Planning Commission did approve the rezoning request. Yes, ma'am.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the rezoning, I believe it's to C3 for Byron and Marina McKinney at 38 Prospect, Eureka Springs.
Second.
Okay,
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
shouldn't we have a motion to discuss first? Just curious.
Well,
Discuss-
we can go either way.
Yeah.
We can discuss.
Doesn't discussion come in after a motion has been made and seconded? And then
The
you
discussion
open
does
up for
come
motion?
in, that's correct.
Okay. So it's your turn, Terry.
Okay, since it's open for discussion, this was presented to us a number of years back. I can't remember exactly how long ago it was. Ann may recall. And we had a problem with it then because it constitutes spot zoning because of the house next door is still residential, and it skips that property, and then the properties on the other side are also residential. And as I stated back then, if the house that is adjacent to the commercial or C1 went along with it, then it would certainly be fine. I have no problems including this. I just think it needs to be contiguous and not be playing hopscotch.
Ms. Green?
Ordinarily, I would agree with Mr. McClung. I know this property. When I first moved here, I worked there for one winter, and it was not a family home. It was a house that was set up, then it was used as a bed and breakfast. It's a house that if Mr. and Mrs. McKinney left and it sat for a while, it would just begin to rot. And it's kind of like the Gavioli Chapel, which I voted to rezone many years ago. There's just buildings that need a use to them so that we don't lose them. And Byron and Marilyn have been so generous with everybody, and I reading their thing, I know they want to do a tour thing, and I know for just about every charity that's asked for them to use the home, they've been so generous at it. And I think they just really want to share it. So I don't think this is a bad rezone, given the building and giving it the chance that it will stay preserved.
Ms. Lane?
I just have a question about the difference between Victorian commercial and what they're applying for, which is quiet commercial. Does the historic district protect that house even if we choose to do quiet commercial?
May I answer her on that?
Yes.
Quiet commercial is, it has regulations. There's parking regulations, there's certain uses. C1, which would be Victorian commercial, you pretty much don't have to have parking. You can have a restaurant. This is going to be subject
little
to,
more.
yeah.
Okay.
Ms. Smalley?
I do want to point out, while the immediate lots next to the lots in question are currently R2, R1. There is C3 contiguous along the rear lot line and also directly across the street. That's all I have to say.
Mr.
I would
McClung?
agree with that.
It's still, you're skipping the house next door. You know, I mean, it's great that the owners are benevolent. I'm certainly glad to hear that. But yet, the rules are the rules, and you're not supposed to spot zone. Another thing is, the owners are also in the real estate business and have been for years, and are quite educated about the business and how it works, and are familiar with the town. And when they bought the house, it had a conditional use permit on it, and they let it lapse. I'm sorry that they did that, but that's what happened. You know, when that happens, then you've got to go back and go through the deal, and it doesn't qualify. So that's my opinion.
Mr. Meyer?
If being across the street from C3 somehow makes it available to C3, what if that other house is going to be boxed in, and that would definitely be spot zoning. If we have rules against spot zoning, I don't think we should be doing this.
Mr. Green?
Just a note of history. They were grandfathered in, and they did lose it because it lapsed, and it was, I believe it was a mistake. Also, the house in the middle did apply to get commercial zoning at one time and ran a studio there. So that whole block is just, you know, it's surrounded. For me, again, I agree with Mr. McClung on a lot of things, but seeing the use of the building, I would rather see it have a use than just at some point in time just sit there.
Point of inquiry, Mr. Mayor. If we table this till our next meeting, could then we find out if it is indeed, ask our city attorney, you know, is it violating anything by, you know, having an island for commercial reasons?
Madam Clerk, what are you holding up in front of me?
In your packet, you have code on how this happens, and it specifies the city council by majority vote shall consider the planning commission's recommendation regarding any rezoning application at the city council's next regularly scheduled meeting, and may by ordinance adopt the required recommended rezoning for do it by planning. It does say that the council can also deny the rezoning, impose conditions, or may return it to the planning commission for further study and recommendation.
Ms. Small?
I do want to point out, I need to do a little quick check to see if they would be required to have parking, but that property, if it's the one I'm thinking of,
They do have parking on the side.
for how many vehicles, do we know?
6.
6?
Yes, it goes behind the house.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
So I drove by the property today just to make sure I knew exactly what it looked like. The front of the property is completely C3. The next door neighbor, yes, is a residential, which is unfortunate because it does block them in, but everything else around it is commercial.
That's not true. The other side is also residential.
The
The
other
other
side of that house on the same street is residential.
Okay, so 2 houses there. I just
No.
don't know what somebody would do if this was a residential home.
Harry, what house are you talking about?
Well, I'm talking about lots 7, 8, 9, 10,
You're
No.
talking about the ones down Linwood Avenue.
right next door.
I just-
To the McKinney application, there's
I think it's behind it.
Yes, the houses
Yeah,
down Linwood
that's
are
Linwood.
residential.
That's Linwood Street.
Yeah,
But the rest of it, all up around there is C3. Well, let's
except for Lot 3
Yep.
on,
Right. And Mr. McClung?
If you want to do something effective, then make the whole loop, make all of that, all the way from the Crescent, all the way to the title company office now, where the old clinic used to be, and make it all commercial. I mean, it should be, it should all be C3. It's all been commercial at one time, so, I don't know, that's what you should be doing, instead of just here and there. You make a commitment, do it, and be done with it.
Excellent.
Ms. Lane?
Here I am again. Page 406, or 460, I'm sorry, in the ordinance, it lists properties that are non-conforming to the residential code. So would this maybe be something that we could add to that instead of rezoning?
That's conditional use permits.
Okay.
Separate.
Okay, separate issue. Okay,
Mr. Mayor.
okay. I'm gonna-
Yes, Mr. Meyer?
May I have Terry's got a good idea there, but if they just approach their neighbor at the house next door and ask if they want to be included in C3, and then it won't be spot zoned, but I'm kind of leaning towards Terry's suggestion
Yes.
anyway.
Mr. Mayor, we went through that last time.
We did.
And the neighbors did not want to.
At
Yeah,
that
their
time,
property.
the neighbors weren't interested. I think they had they were raising the property value and the taxes.
I see.
Any further discussion? We do have a motion and a second on the table. If there's no further discussion, I think the motion, Madam Clerk, if you'd reread the motion.
To approve the rezoning recommended by planning.
And that was presented by,
Ms. Green and Ms. Molay seconded.
okay. All right, motion been made and seconded. Let's have a roll call, please.
Ms. Lane?
Here.
Mr. Ott?
Aye.
Mr. McClung?
No.
Ms. Green?
Yes.
Ms. Molay?
No.
Mr. Meyer?
No,
3-3.
I'm going to vote yes.
4-3, carries.
All right. Our next application is application to be, I guess, on rezoning 44 Armstrong from R1 Victorian to C1 Commercial. This came before the Planning Commission and was denied, and so this is actually an appeal to the City Council. Get a motion to discuss?
I move that we make a motion to discuss rezoning at 44 Armstrong.
Mr. Mayor, should a motion be to approve and then,
We can, there's motions right now to discuss. That's the way we've
Okay.
done it.
all right.
So,
I'll second.
time before we jumped ahead of ourselves. Mr. McClung?
I'd like to go ahead and make a motion to approve this application for rezoning.
We already got a motion on the table. I was waiting for a second.
We already have it.
Yeah.
We do.
Oh, we do?
But
Oh, I'm
I would
sorry.
like
didn't
to
hear the second.
discuss.
I'm sorry, Mr. McClung.
I-
Who was the second by?
Okay.
Okay.
We still get to discuss.
All right, yeah, we've got a motion to approve it. Did I get a second?
No? Not yet?
I'll make
All
a
right.
second. You're making a motion to approve?
Yes, I did.
I will second that.
All right, now we got discussion. Is there any discussion? Ms. Green?
Well, we'll go back to Mr. McClung's thing on spot zoning. This house has been a residential house. It was bought residential, it could be, I guess it's being used as a second home. It's been used as a second home, it's been used as a resident. And we really are, this is a house, to me, that could be used as a residence. And if someone buys a second home and they buy it residential, we've just had so much commercialism. I just feel it's coming to a point of, because I know Glenna gets call after call all week long on anything that goes on the market. Hey, can I do this as an Airbnb? And I think we're coming to a time where we used to need them to keep the town filled. We just don't need them anymore. And I think if someone bought it as residential, it needs to stay as residential. The McKimmy's in the last case, they bought theirs and it was used commercially.
Mr. McClung?
What it was is different than what it is. And so, you're playing favorites. This one it's got commercial on the side of it, then the city, the bank owns the other lots. The property right next to it is also being rezoned commercial for the Truer Boy. So, that doesn't make any sense at all. None.
Sorry, can I just go?
Ms. Lane?
Sorry. I think it's super important to keep our residential, but I do have to agree with Terry on this, where everything around it is commercial. We are at a difficult situation here in Eureka. We are trying to preserve where we live because that is such an issue. But in this case, I agree. It should be commercial.
Mr. Meyer?
Considering the location of this, I could see if somebody bought this for a residence, and then there's loud music at the cat house or across the street, all of a sudden they're going to be calling the neighbor and complaining, and I know there are people up there that complain about, I bought a house close to this stuff, and now why are they making so much noise? So this is definitely it's surrounded by commercial, and it's right there in the thick of things. Why not?
Any further discussion? All right, is there a motion then
Yes,
to approve?
yes,
I'll second that motion.
it's already done.
Oh, it is? Okay.
All right, let's have a roll call.
Ms. Mollet?
Yes.
Ms. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Meyer?
Yes.
Mr. McClung?
Yes.
Ms. Lane?
Yes.
Mr. Rott?
Aye.
6-0.
All right. And then that comes up with the adjoining property, which is another appeal from 46 Armstrong from R1 to Victorian Residential. In this case, it failed for a lack of a second. So do I get a motion for something?
I move that we approve the application for zoning change at 46 Armstrong.
I'll second that.
Okay. Comments, discussion? Ms. Green?
I do want to make a comment. This house has been a monthly rental forever, so again, I am a little disappointed. I probably will vote yes, but I do want to, as Mr. McClung did, I want to speak, my dissatisfaction at it.
All right, any further discussion? In that case, I'm just going to see all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? All right. That takes care of our rezoning. We now come down to discussion for an ordinance to accept the Pine Creek subdivision into the city limits.
Would that be Pine Crest?
Beg your pardon?
Pine Crest?
Pine Crest.
Motion
Sorry,
to
what
discuss.
Second.
All right.
I have a question on I don't know if it's procedure or not. Seeing as I was the planning commissioner doing most of this,
I'm sorry.
I need to find out if I'm qualified to vote or if I should be abstaining.
You have to follow your own conscience.
Okay.
All right, anybody want to start off?
I'll make a motion to discuss an
I think
ordinance.
we already got,
Oh,
we've got the discussion.
Okay. Is there anyone here for that?
Wait just a moment. Mr. McClung, did you?
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the subdivision and prepare an ordinance for passage.
I'll second
May I
that.
comment?
Okay.
The reason the ordinance that you have in front of you says draft, the ordinance is prepared, but it didn't get a final nod from the city attorney. He's just coming back. And code says you, council, sees it at the next meeting, but the reason it has draft is because we don't have the nod on this product.
I'm sorry, I couldn't understand what you said.
Basically, the city attorney hasn't approved this. He's been sick, and so we're just now, this is the draft ordinance.
So we can make a motion. I didn't make
We-
a motion to read it.
We can even approve it and read it and wait until next week to do any, or next meeting to do anything.
We can't read the draft, can we?
Sure.
Huh?
We can,
We could?
if you wanted to.
Well, let me ask Mr. Guston one question. What is 2 weeks going to do to you as far as your project?
It doesn't really spur out, we're here behind right now. Nobody's fault, it's just the way it works, so whatever works best for you will work for me.
May I continue?
Yes, sir.
What I would suggest that we do is that we wait and make sure that our city attorney has looked at it, which that way then we could read it twice at the next meeting. Probably actually go ahead and read it 3 times because everybody will have it here. Everybody's got a chance to read it over between now and then, so they'll know it. We can do all 3 readings and then at the next meeting, and then it could go on, and 30 days later, it's a done deal.
I'm definitely on board with that. That sounds very reasonable to me. I mean, time is of essence to some degree, but whatever it takes to get this properly through where it's not questionable is totally satisfactory. I like that.
Does that sound reasonable, Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, I wanted to interject too. Our Public Works Director, Dwayne Allen, who's been ill the last several weeks, isn't here tonight, but he's been working very closely with Mr. Guston in developing this property, and so it has been developed to all the city standards. And I would highly suggest, if y'all haven't been out there, it's off of Pivot Rock Road as you go out about a mile,
No.
Oh, quarter mile.
quarter mile down the road. On the right-hand side, it's a blacktop road. It's a beautiful subdivision that Mr. Guston's done. This is the first subdivision that I know of been created in Eureka in at least 20 or maybe 30 years. But I would suggest that all of you go out and drive down it and look at it, so you can see what Mr. Guston has done.
May I comment? I also would like to thank your planning commissioner. I know how hard planning worked on this, and I think they worked very well with you.
They did. I was reticent when I started, thinking, boy, we're going to have a lot of problems, but accolades to Planning Commission. I found out if you have your, for the lack of a better word, your ducks in a row, if you're lined up, they're there to work on it. And it's been a pleasure through the whole process. And like I said, things sometimes have been slow and we're running somewhat behind schedule, but it has nothing to do with the city or anybody, Dwayne or Planning Commission. It's just, weather, workmen coming in and things of this nature. But there are no bad stories. There are no bad stories. Now, to switch subjects just for a second, of course, we want you to come out and look around. I want you to be aware of one thing you're going to find that I think is deficient. I want to point it out, and it is being corrected. It has been redrawn, and we recorded that we have changed the position to where to turn the fire trucks around, and so we're going to have a proper cul-de-sac that's already been approved by Jimmy Kelly and the police, or fire chief, at the end of the road. But it'll probably be spring before we put it in, just due to weather, and we've got to get the blacktop down, and they're not laying blacktop this time of year. So when you get to the end of the road, you're going to say, what's he doing here? Well, there's been some field changes, but we've finally got it approved what is going to work best in this situation. So I just want you to be aware of that when you do drive down the road, that this situation has been addressed. That's all the comment I have on that. Any other questions?
No, just congratulations and good work, Planning Commission.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Guston.
Thank you.
All right, I will take a motion to defer this until,
Motion to defer until next meeting.
Second.
all right, any further discussion?
I have a point of inquiry. Terry was talking about doing the readings of it. Do we need to wait until it's been sine-died by the attorney before we do it?
We're hoping we'll have that. We'll
Okay.
know that by the
All right.
next meeting.
Didn't know if we could get the ball rolling or not.
I have an amendment.
Beg your pardon?
I have an amendment. I
Okay.
move to amend that we prepare the emergency clause so we can do all 3 readings at the next meeting.
Okay. Do I get a second?
Second.
on it? Who second? Was it Mr. Ott?
Oop.
All right. We got any discussion on that amendment? All right, there's been an amendment to add the emergency clause to the ordinance, and with no further discussion, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, the amendment passes. Now we're going to defer it until our next meeting. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? So moved. All right. That brings us up to a resolution on a hate crimes resolution. Get a motion to discuss.
Motion to discuss putting a number on the resolution?
Okay. This is a resolution that I had written that I want to send down to the governor for he's getting ready to write, or the legislation's going to have some, legislators are writing some legislation regarding the hate crimes, and I think this is something that's very important, especially in our city. And so I would like to have this resolution read and approved so we can send it down to the governor and to our legislators for their information.
I move that we assign the resolution a number and read it into passage.
Second.
I got a motion and a second to read this, sign a number, and read it into passage.
Who was the second?
Ms. Smalley. Any further discussion? Hearing none.
Mr. Ott?
Aye.
Mr. McClung?
Yes.
Ms. Molay,
Yes.
Ms. Green?
Yes?
Ms. Lane?
Yes.
Mr. Meyer?
Yes.
6-0, the resolution number will be 792. A resolution in support of legislation to enhance penalties for hate-related crimes. Whereas the City Council of Eureka Springs, Arkansas, having been informed that the state has no meaningful state criminal statutes related to enhanced penalties for hate crimes. Give me just a moment. And whereas the City of Eureka Springs Council believes that hate crimes are committed on the basis of the victim's race, religion, gender identity, sexual orientation, national origin, homelessness, disability, ethnicity, color, ancestry, service in the United States military, or sex. And whereas the City Council of Eureka Springs has a strong history of supporting individual human rights. Now therefore be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Eureka Springs that this council wishes to express, 1, support for legislation for enhanced penalties for crimes committed on the basis of race, religion, gender identity, sexual orientation, national origin, homelessness, disability, ethnicity, color, ancestry, service in the United States military, or sex. And 2, to hereby encourage the Arkansas State Legislature to make the passage of enhanced penalties for hate crimes. And 3, to hereby encourage the Honorable Governor of the State of Arkansas to sign any presented legislation which enhances punishment for hate crimes.
Thank you. All right, that brings us up to a discussion on electric charging stations. Get a motion to discuss?
Motion to discuss?
Second.
Second.
Ms. Smiley, at the last meeting, brought this up to put on the agenda, and I really wanted to let the council realize and know that we've been working with trying to get some electric charging stations in the city for probably the last 2 years. And in the last 6 months, we've been working with the executive director of an organization called Adopt a Charger, which is a nonprofit organization that installs electric vehicle charging stations. And they work with national parks, state parks, museums, universities to install fee-free EVCS, which is electric vehicle charging stations, to raise the awareness of the electric vehicles. They've received a grant from Entergy to install these stations. And so we reached out to them about installing one, some in Eureka Springs. Their first location in the state of Arkansas was the city of Lone Oak. Eureka was selected as their second location. So they came to town, and we looked at various sites, and we picked out 2 spots up at the Eureka Visitor Center, top of Plainer Hill, which is also where the transit center, their parking is. They will install in the stations. The installed cost of the equipment is approximately $9,300, and the project will be of no cost to the city of Eureka Springs. So I've included got some information for y'all. I don't know if it's in your packet. I think it might be on the various equipment that they're going to have. They got the green light to start the installation probably around February the 1st. So Lone Oak's going to be, as I mentioned, the first installation. And then right after that, Eureka will they'll come up and start installing the Eureka charging stations. So I'm proud to say that this has finally come to fruition, and we're going to see a couple of charging stations put on the city parking lots. So if there's any questions, I'll be glad to answer that. Ms. Lane?
I'm just curious, how much is this going to cost us electricity-wise? And what is like the average car use for a recharge? Sorry.
Well, Mr. Meyer just has
that
an
no?
electric car, and he could probably answer a couple
You
of those
know?
questions a little bit.
Okay.
The cost is minimal.
These are level 2 chargers, so these aren't the DC fast charge units that suck a lot of electricity. What does it cost me to keep my car going for a month, plugging it in at home? It's about $30.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
Yeah, it amounts to, if you were using gasoline, 18 cents a gallon.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
And I would also like to point out, too, that the Plainer Hill location has a solar energy system set up to run the electric meters up there. In fact, the first time when they put it up, I was real excited because the meter actually started running backwards as soon as they turned it on. So it probably won't cost the city hardly anything.
This is super exciting.
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, what were the initials you said these were in your reading?
EVCS.
Is that the same one, is that different from what you said, the initials?
Pardon me?
You-
Well, it's the same thing. It's exactly the same type of unit.
Okay, so what you're talking about is what we're getting.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, I think there's just different amperages.
It's just an electric vehicle charging station. And these are level 2 charging stations, which, what are they?
I think they take an hour to charge or two.
In an hour, you get something like 24 miles of driving time.
As opposed to, the residential takes quite a while to charge.
4 miles
Yeah.
per hour.
And
Yeah.
question, once they're installed, is it easy maintenance? I mean, or are they going to maintain it, or what?
Well, at this point, I think they will maintain it for a period of time, for about a year, but after that, it becomes the city's
Okay,
responsibility.
as long as they train somebody.
Well, may I add to that is that actually the charger is part of the automobile. This is basically just the source of energy. So there's a little controller in there that talks to the car so that the car tells it how much juice it can take at one time. They're very, very simple.
Any other questions, Ms. Molly?
Not a question, but thank you to you and Kim and everyone who worked with you on this project. I'm just very excited to see them go in.
Well, we're excited because we were excited when we got announced and found out that we were able to get, 2 of the stations. We were hoping we were going to get 4, but we'll settle for 2.
Well, it's a nice thing for our visitors.
And once we do, be sure to let the CAPC's agency know so they can include that in their marketing.
And actually, and I didn't realize it until Mr. Meyer pointed out, there is almost everyone who has an electric car has an app that shows you where all the nearest charging stations are.
Oh.
So we will now
Fantastic.
become.
The moment it's installed, it'll be on the map.
Yeah.
Instantly.
All right.
Well, I know that, I'm saying
That's cool.
it'll be on the map. We're trying to get people here, because that's our industry, is tourism.
I see Electric Car Festival.
Ooh.
So let's make sure the ad agency knows about it, so we can get it marketed.
All right, any further questions or comments? All right, well, that brings us down to the agenda setting. Anybody have anything at this point? Ms. Smalley?
I'd like to introduce the topic of modifying both East Mountain and Pivot Rock to allow for safe pedestrians passage and possibly bicycle passage as well for children. So not a trail for the fancy bike riders, but for the kids going back and forth.
I'll second that.
Anything else?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
Maybe a discussion on the COVID policy for the city and how COVID is affecting our businesses and residents.
I could give you a COVID update, yeah. In 2 weeks.
You have that in
a little bit more.
in your speech anyway, don't you? Or you will have?
I probably will have, yeah.
Yeah, great.
There's, yeah. In fact, I'm going to be talking about it tonight a little bit, too, so.
If I
Ms. Lane?
have questions over the budgets that were given tonight,
Most of those have to do with independent commissions, autonomous commissions, so,
okay.
but you can call and we can direct you to where they go. Yeah,
Okay, thank you.
all right. Anybody else? All right, Mr. Ott, you got public comments?
No, sir.
Ms. Smalley?
No, thank you.
Ms. Green?
No, thank you.
Ms. Lane?
No, thank you.
Mr. Meyer?
No, sir.
Mr. McClung?
No.
Well, I guess I'll be the only one with making comments then. Mr. Meyer brought up the fact of the COVID. This had been, as we all know, a serious virus has been going around and affecting everybody. almost 10 months ago, I guess, Eureka Springs got hit with it, and we had our emergency budget meetings. And I know I was, and along with everybody else, didn't have any idea where we were going to go and what was going to happen. Unfortunately, the COVID vaccination situation is almost the same today. While it's exciting to know that we have a vaccination out there, some of our people have had their vaccinations. But the first group in Phase 1B became eligible for vaccination beginning on January 18th. And these groups were the ones who are 70 and older, as well as education and child care workers. The initial doses of vaccines were shipped from the state directly to the pharmacies. In our case, here in Eureka Springs, Smith's Pharmacy was the designated delivery point where the vaccine was going to be delivered to. From there, it was going to be taken out, and they worked with Echo Clinic, who was willing to help establish and run the first drive-through vaccination clinic last Tuesday. They inoculated 282 individuals. The plan is for Echo to continue weekly drives through shot clinics pending the vaccination arrival from the state. We've been told to expect 100 vaccinations weekly. However, there are over 1,100 currently on the list at Smith's Pharmacy. So we, like every other town in Arkansas, are looking to increase our allotment from the state. I have written the governor, also the state medical advisor, and our state legislators, encouraging them to allocate Eureka Springs additional vaccination doses, since we are a tourist center and we do have so many people coming into town. In the meantime, I have not heard from them, but I'm still hoping that because of our letters and we'll be able to get additional vaccination doses. In the meantime, I would really like to thank the Echo Clinic and the doctors and nurses and staff of volunteers who came together to run that first and future shot clinic. I also want to thank Smith Drug for continuing to receive the weekly vaccination, as well as taking the many calls to place people on the wait list. Also would like to thank our hospital for they came up and vaccinated a lot of our EMS and fire and police, and also the hospital staff. It's unfortunate we don't have enough vaccine to go around for everybody at this point. But I think if we keep patient, we'll be getting there. But I want to thank all of our volunteers for being on the front line in Eureka Springs, because we certainly appreciate all of you. So without that, if I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Thank you.